few of you. The Department of Peace legislation is something that Dennis wrote when he watched a further bill within Congress under the Clinton administration to attack Serbia. And he watched this relatively calm people turn into real excited people, energized by the idea of violence. And he really sort of was questioning why this would happen, because he'd never felt it. And he started to study violence and peace and reconciliation and all of those things. And in July of 2001, he actually entered the legislation for the first time into Congress. It's now embodied, it's now been obviously entered a few times. It's embodied in House Resolution 808, and the legislation really goes to look at what it is, what is the cause of violence, and how can we stem that cause of violence. It looks domestically at child abuse and spousal abuse, and violence in the schools, and racial violence, and police community relations challenges, and violence against gays, and all of those different things. Where does that come from? Children learn violence, they can learn peace. So what happens, in an education system, we can teach children, what do you do if somebody hits you? Or what do you do if you become angry? Do you have to lash out? Do you have to shout back? How do you deal with your emotions? All of those kinds of things at an early age. To deal with domestic abuse, it's too late when somebody is in the emergency room or in a morgue. You have to deal with it before that kind of thing happens. The homes can really be really loving places, but they can also be pressure cookers when people are under pressure economically with respect to jobs or healthcare or any kind of financial things. And we need to make sure that within our communities we have a good network to really help people overcome those difficulties. And we don't have that at the moment. We've got wonderful community organisations that spring up and that are generally voluntary and underfunded. But we need a whole structure which is supported by government, which is funded, so that we can have that mainstream. So it's not just special schools with children that are very lucky that learn peace and conflict resolution and restorative justice. It's everybody that learns that. And then from that we save money along the line. We don't have to have such an enormous prison system. We don't have to have so much expense in the emergency room when people go in there with violent crimes and related injuries. So that's really the domestic side of the Department of Peace, and on the international level, it's a cabinet level position, so you're popular. So on an international level, we look at situations in Darfur. They don't just arise out of nothing. There's a steady build-up to conflict, there's a steady build-up to unrest. And we can often see very, very early on where that's starting. And if we can address it early on, then we don't have to have military intervention at a crisis point. This I really liken to our health. If we feel a twang of illness coming on, like a cold or something, then, if you take a few vitamins and maybe some echinacea drops, then it might go away. Eat a bit of garlic if it's a bit worse. But if you get the flu, right, very, very developed, you might have to go to hospital. You may even die. That's the crisis point. We want to catch things very early on, and the same is true with violence in our society. So that's what the cabinet level Department of Peace focuses on. It doesn't take away from the Department of Defence. Well, it does a little bit. It takes 1%. It takes 1% of the budget away from the Department of Defence. So it's very cost effective, and I think would be very effective in our communities if we were to have that. So thank you all.